what a black boy experiences with his father not being there, to show him, what a real man is, or what it is to love a real woman, or a real black woman, essentially, to how to love her correctly. And he doesn't spend time with the child. He's then raised by a very strong, independent black woman who will eventually take on the weaker traits as signs of strength or as example. And he begins to pick up this behavior, and he deals with emotional abandonment. He deals with emotional trauma and because of the lack of having his father and having a role model and example. His mother has a fear for his life in society as a black man, and can make him more mentally weak or almost dependent, essentially walking into the society based off of the fact of her own fear for his life, and that she would rather want him to be, not so aggressive or not such a threat or considered such a threat. A lot of times with that feminization and there only being a woman in the household, she would rather him be considered weak in society and physically strong, but she would rather him appear as weak in order to not be considered a threat. That's not typically looked upon, but sometimes that does happen, and that happens when there's no black role model of a man in the household. And that puts us right back into what power do we have, essentially, because I'm going to definitely get into the statistics of this, but the power that we have is to be there for our children and our spouse. It's to raise them and teach them differently. It's to dress less sexual, to represent black women as a unit better and carry ourselves with class. And then we also want to not seek attention from others to feel whole. That goes for all types of women. That goes for everybody from the NBA wives, where it's come out a couple times, you're feeling like you need attention or whatever because he's getting attention, or you feel insecure because no, okay. We're also not going to tear, the black man down, or even tear each other down. Like, let's uplift everybody, men and women, amongst each other. And this goes for the fact that there is colorism and post-traumatic slave syndrome in our black community. Address that. If someone says, "Oh, well, I really wouldn't want to date her because what happens if we mate and the baby comes out darker? What happens if we mate and the hair isn't the texture I want? What happens if I'm already dark and then she darker? This ain't gonna work." If you hear something like that, address it. Because when you don't address it, you become a part of the problem. Address it, because it's not right. It's wrong. A person's value is not based off of their skin tone. That's not going to be accepted anywhere, especially in the black community. It should not be accepted anywhere. It happens in our society enough as it is. Based off of the fact that they're thinking that if she's lighter, she's connected more, or, closer genetically to white culture or whatever. It needs to be addressed. It's not okay. It's not right. Address it. Or you become a part of the problem and you're allowing people to think you're perfectly fine with what they're thinking, and that shit ain't okay. Point blank, period. Okay? We come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors of melanin. And that needs to be respected from all sides and from all people, realistically. So, especially by each other. And this anger that we have with black men that the government has told us to have and to live by. Like, we need to be liberated from them. When we have nothing to be liberated from the government. We don't. We weren't oppressed by them at all. Honestly, when you really look at it from a historical point of view. I'm going to get into that. Because you're probably like, oh, so you're just saying my trauma comes from daddy issues. No. This is also a part of it, okay? One, we have white privilege. White privilege exists in our society. We have the Jim Crow laws, which is basically segregation. We have 1964, where Lyndon B. Johnson decided to sign the Civil Rights Act and demolish the whole discrimination and segregation, basically. He ended it. But 1965, we have the Voting Rights Act, which helped minorities vote, and the contraception, which is passed by Supreme Court. Now, why did they pass contraception around the same time as minorities being able to vote? Because they didn't want there to be a need for population control. They needed to control it now. They did not want more people to have a say. There were minorities who were going to outnumber those who already had a say, which were white men. Okay? If we can try to control how many there are, maybe then there won't be so many of them to have to vote later on and have a say. We have the fact that feminism in general came around 1968, where the president prohibits sex discrimination and says, let's hire more women. More women, more women, more women. Now, I'm going to address this now. I'm going to say it once, maybe even say it twice, because I really don't care. Feminism has nothing to do with black women. It doesn't. It doesn't regard and it doesn't acknowledge race. It doesn't. Okay? It doesn't acknowledge the race. It doesn't acknowledge the oppression that we still face versus a white man. It doesn't. That Equal Rights Association, ran by Elizabeth Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, was essentially just oppression of the marriage, feeling like they were, in their own words, enslaved in their marriage and didn't have a say. To think that they would compare it to something of such nature, enslaved, around that time was such a big thing. And it was basically a white agenda. It was something that was for white women. Black women had intersectional feminism, which was essentially acknowledging race, being a part of that feminism, being a part of the rights that needed to be given. Right? That black women, they still were being oppressed. It wasn't really their fight in some form. We have a different fight, a different day. We live different days. We have 2 different types of days. So from there, being involved in that did break up the rise of that civil rights movement. Feminism, the fact that we were involved in it and it had nothing to fucking do with us. The black woman's agenda was initially with intersectional feminism was to uplift her man, uplift the community, uplift her children and the future generation of the black people. And it got lost in the white agenda. It did. Because by 1969 we have divorce, and this is now where you can have a mutual divorce, and now it's more independent women. We have 1970, where we have 33% of black men in prison, going to 39% to black men in prison. The rise of it was drastic at this point, just rising. Single black mothers, essentially, and that went from 22% from 1960 to 56% in 2006. The rise of it. And I wanted to get into, well, where did it all go wrong? What happened? We have the fact that men live different days than us. They do. Okay. When you want to destroy a planet, you take out the alpha male. The alpha male protects the divine feminine. When you take out the divine feminine in a such, they didn't take out the divine feminine. They left what was most vulnerable of our society. Black men were meant to protect black women, protect what was most vulnerable, the black children, black women. And when you take away the alpha male, then you have the black woman who have now seen, even in Willie Lynch letter, saying that civilized men were then bullwhipped and seen as weak. And black women saw this. They saw this. They know this. And they felt left alone and unprotected in that moment when their men were taken away from them and they were seen as weak. And ever since then, it has been that same stigma in order to keep the black man down and incarcerated. But black men live a different day every single day. Not only are they undermined by society, but they're demasculinized by authority. They suffer from demasculinization from white people. They suffer through true slavery and have a higher risk of experiencing incarceration. They have unemployment almost 2 times that of the overall population. I mean, the white man is basically in EPR 1.81 for a white man. And then you have white women at 0.65, and you have the black men at 0.63, and you have the Asian man at 0.56, and the black woman at 0.30. And this is just a management position. This is just who they have working for them. If you look at these rates, of just employment, it's ridiculous. You have single mothers that it was outnumbered with black children. 54% of them had single mothers, and only 22% of white children had single mothers around this time. In 2015. In 1970, there was a large withdrawal of major industries in the black community due to skill bias, technological change, and globalization. Now, meant that they were being replaced. And I can even testify to this myself with my grandfather, who died from stage 4 lung cancer working in a plant after serving in the war and being in the Navy. He ended up getting asbestos from the place that he worked. These types of things around 1980 were happening as well. But they were happening a little bit before that, but around 1980, it was actually the fact that the U.S. lost 2 million manufacturing jobs. They had poisoned black workers, leaving the black women a single mother, predominantly those with low education. So look at these statistics. There used to be a tribe, a community. Not only are they breaking down the community, not only are they saying that there's hypersexualization from the fact that women, they need that attention from men in order to feel better about what they experienced when they were younger, the lack and the abandonment of a black role model who was a man in their household. You have the fact that there's feminization through the propaganda towards black men in general through media. If your father is not there, if there's no time being given for you to identify what a black man truly is, you will go to the TV, you will go to your phone, you will try to get acceptance from other people, you will try to find something that works for you, and you will develop traits from the one that is raising you without a black man. And these things are not easy to acknowledge, but they're true. Emasculization plus effeminization. And let's just go into that. Emasculization is making less man, and effeminization is characteristics regarded typical of a woman. When you add those two together, minus knowledge equal domination. And the fact that they took away the alpha males from the women left them feeling like they needed to be independent and step up. And when we try to step up and do what we got to do, it's very hard for us to release the reins and realize, okay, our black man, he can have us too. He's got our back too. We didn't need to be liberated anything from them, but we do have deep-seated anger at the fact that they suffered due to these different types of things. And there's forced enslavement of black men into the white society, feared by white men, white supremacy, feminization of black men in the Western society. And we're not talking about homosexuality, no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the strategies that the media sometimes portrays, where a black man will even get paid more for doing something that portrays him as weak, okay? Rather it's a drug addict, or rather it's a black woman playing a prostitute, or rather it's a black man playing a woman essentially sometimes. These different things that we see, weaken the image of the black man. And it's insane when you really look at it. It's true. There are many different things that we profit off of, that doesn't truly help our community at all. If it doesn't profit the white society, if it doesn't prove that black men are weaker and not needed and important, then it doesn't happen. When it doesn't give our people strength, when it doesn't give our people knowledge, it happens. When these things don't help contribute to our community, these things get paid, these things happen, these things make money, right? When we play these disrespectful roles towards our image, it can change the whole way that we are portrayed sometimes. And to be honest, I mean, a lot of black actors have even mentioned this, where, they didn't get paid well until they did this type of scene, they played this type of character, and really portrayed it that well because of how black they were, and they were able to relate to it, and And it's not easy to hear at all, and it's not easy for them to even admit that they got this part to play something so disrespectful, the image that it portrays for their community, and that it was reciprocated, and it was taken very well by society and just sort of accepted, because who cares about the black man? At some point, something has to be said. At some point, something has to be said about what we're seeing. Not just that, something has to be done for the future. There has to be time given into the future generation. A child needs affection, security, care, time, support, understanding,